Tonight's story is about a quiet station, a rainy evening, and two strangers who find a small, warm light in each other's company. If your eyes grow heavy at any point, let them close. The story will carry you gently, like a slow train in the night. Take a slow breath in and out. Let the rain settle your thoughts. And now, let's begin. It was late, and the rain had the kind of patience that only November knows. Steady, unhurried, a soft percussion across the platform roofs and the metal benches that waited, empty and glistening. The station sat like a lantern in the damp night, its lights warm and slightly humming, the boards listing arrival times that kept shifting, a flicker of numbers and letters that never quite held still. A man stood near the edge of the platform, careful and quiet, as if his nearness to the tracks was a conversation he didn't want to interrupt. His name, though it didn't matter yet, was Ethan. He carried a small overnight bag darkened by the rain. The hood of his coat was pulled up, but a few curls had escaped, threaded with water. On the far end of the platform, under a cracked poster for a summer festival long past, a woman sat. The bench beneath her was cold, but she didn't mind. She had chosen the spot because it was near the old heater grill, which sometimes rattled and sometimes didn't, but always gave off the faint scent of dust, warming and unwarming. Her name, which also didn't matter yet, was Mira. She held her phone loosely in her hands, not looking at it, letting the rain fill the space where messages might have been. Ethan breathed out in a long ribbon of air that hung in the cold, then faded. He wasn't annoyed, not truly. He felt the delay like an extra page at the end of a chapter, unnecessary, but nice to touch before you close the book. He stepped back from the edge, glanced up the platform, and noticed the woman at the bench. Noticed, too, that her shoulders were drawn in tight against the weather, and that she had no umbrella. He considered his options the way one considers a doorway. Is it better to pass through, or let the moment be? The rain answered by gathering itself in a single gleaming line along the edge of the roof, then letting go all at once. He took that as a sign. He walked toward the bench. The heater hummed once like a sleeping cat. "Excuse me," he said, voice quiet so it wouldn't break the softness of the night. "Would you like the umbrella? I'm wearing a hood, and I don't mind the rain." She looked up, startled not by him, but by the kindness. Her eyes were the color of the platform lights, warm and a little tired. "That's gentle of you," she said, smiling, "but you'll get soaked." "I don't think the rain intends to stop for either of us," he replied. "If you take it, at least one person will win this round." Mira laughed, the sound small and bright in the damp air. "All right, I'll borrow it," she said, and took the umbrella, opening it with a soft foom that made a small circle of shelter, a planet under which two strangers could breathe without hurry. They sat together, not quite close enough to be companionable, not quite far enough to be separate. The heater crackled. Somewhere, a vending machine thrummed and clicked. "Do you travel often?" she asked. "I do," he said. "This month more than most. You?" "Not usually, but tonight, yes." She tipped her head toward the board, though apparently the night has other plans. He nodded, following her gaze to the flickering text. He smiled. "It's funny," he said. "I set alarms and alarms for alarms, and then the night just stretches time like taffy." "Maybe it's not trying to waste it," she said. "Maybe it's trying to sweeten it." He turned that over, carefully. "That's a kind thought." "I'm practicing those," she said, They don't always come naturally. The heater sighed. The rain softened, then swelled again, as if the sky were breathing with them. "Where are you headed?" she asked, and though it was the most usual question, it felt different in the quiet between them. "Port Haven," he said. "Just overnight. My sister's moving apartments, and I promised I'd be there for boxes and pizza, and the sort of moral support that only carrying a couch can give." She smiled. "You must be a good brother." "I try." He tilted his head. "You?" "Riversong," she said. "My grandmother's place. She collects old clocks, the kind that chime at odd hours just because they feel like it." Mira's smile deepened. "One of them has finally given up pretending, and I'm going to help her take it to a shop." "Clocks," he said, as if tasting the word. "I like the idea of time that sings." They let that sit between them, a small, shared thought. The board flickered again, as if it too was thinking. After a while, the cold reminded their fingers of itself. Ethan stood, stretched, and nodded toward the machine. "Tea?" he asked. "It claims to have several varieties. I've only ever seen it produce one color, but the label is hopeful." Mira laughed. "Let's be hopeful," she said. "Maybe it will surprise us." They walked to the vending machine, the umbrella sheltering their steps. The machine hummed like a considerate refrigerator. He pressed a button labeled chamomile. It delivered something that smelled faintly of flowers and mostly of warmth. He handed it to her. He chose peppermint for himself. It tasted better than it had any right to. They stood side by side, letting the cups work their magic on their chilled hands, watching the rain like an old movie, grainy, steady, distant, yet immediate. "You know," Mira said, the steam spiraling up, "I used to be afraid of missing trains." "Practical fear," Ethan said. "Expensive too." "Not just the train," she said softly. "The idea that if I wasn't exactly on time for everything, life would leave without me, as if it ran on rails and I was always a few steps behind." He nodded. "I know that feeling. I've been sprinting for platforms in my mind for years." "What changed?" she asked. He considered. "Maybe. Nothing changed. Maybe I just got tired of sprinting." She smiled. "I like that answer." They walked back to the bench, moving slowly so the umbrella wouldn't splash them with its edges. The heater, loyal as ever, offered its quiet warmth. They sat. "Do you remember your first train ride?" Ethan asked, turning his peppermint cup in his hands. "Yes," Mira said, closing her eyes as if reading the memory from the inside. "I was 8. My mother had packed orange slices that made everything smell like summer. I wore a polka dot dress with a missing button. The train window was scratched, and when the sun hit it, it made little rainbows I tried to catch with my fingers." He smiled at the picture, setting it behind his eyes like a small painting. "I love that," he said. "Mine was with my dad. I remember we didn't even go anywhere important. We just rode because he said the best conversations happen when the scenery is moving." "And did they?" she asked. "They did," he said. "We didn't solve anything big, but we named the colors of the clouds and the shapes of the fields, and it felt gentle, like nothing needed to be fixed for a while." They breathed together. The station held them like cupped hands, the rain making a silver curtain beyond the platform's edge. "Are you happy?" she asked, the question so quiet it could have been mistaken for a draft. He answered with care. Sometimes I am very happy. Sometimes I am just very tired, and sometimes I'm both at once, which seems unfair and also true. She nodded. I think that's honest, she said. I used to answer quickly, always fine, always good. Lately, I let the answer be slower. Slower answers, he said softly. I like those. The board flickered. It seemed the night had pulled up a chair. Ethan reached into his bag, searching for nothing in particular, and found a small folded paper, an old ticket stub saved out of habit. He smoothed it with his thumb. Do you ever keep little proofs? He asked. Scraps of paper that show you were somewhere once. All the time, Mira said. I have a drawer that's just paper and lint and the occasional bus ticket. I tell myself I'll sort it. I never do. Maybe the sorting isn't the point, he said. Maybe keeping is. She looked at him with that warmed lamplight gaze. Maybe you're right. They listened to the rain. It wasn't a soundtrack exactly, but it filled the spaces and rounded the edges. The station was not crowded. The few others who waited were distant, their voices low and patient. Mira caught a drop of water clinging to the umbrella's rim with her fingertip. My grandmother says rain is the sky's way of telling stories we forgot to listen to, she said. That if you let it, it can rinse away the noise we keep carrying. Ethan let the words settle. Your grandmother sounds like someone whose clocks I'd like to meet. She would like that, Mira said. She gives them names. The small brass one that ticks too loud is Henry. The one that never chimes on the hour is Isabel. Isabel keeps her own time, she says, and then winks, like she's in on something. They smiled together, the kind of smile that lifts without effort. Time, faithless and faithful, passed. The rain grew almost tender. The heater hummed its steady hum. A station attendant walked by, nodded and continued into the night like a slow-moving thought. Can I tell you a secret? Mira asked, not waiting for the answer, because the question was less a request and more a ribbon she needed to hand to the air. Earlier today, I nearly didn't come. I told myself the clock could wait. I told myself the rain was an excuse to stay small. And what changed? Ethan asked. She looked up at the board, at the tunnel beyond the platform, at the umbrella sheltering a world the size of a bench. The thought that if I waited, I would be practicing waiting. He breathed in, slow. That's a strong thought. She nodded, fingers resting lightly on the paper cup, now only a little warm. I don't know what I'm doing most days, she said softly, but I know I want to get better at arriving. They sat with that for a time that did not have to be named. Would it be all right? Ethan said after a while. If I tried something I'm not very good at? She tilted her head. What's that? Being brave, he said. He looked at his hands, then at her. I don't know you, and I won't pretend I do. But this. He gestured at the umbrella, the bench, the shared smallness of the night. Has been kind. If we end up on the same train, could we keep talking? About clocks that sing and vending machine teas and arriving? Mira's smile was quiet and luminous. We could, she said. And if we don't, maybe we can let this be the whole story and be grateful. He nodded, something uncoiling inside his chest. Acceptance, maybe, or simple ease. Either way, he said, I'm grateful. The board flickered again. For once, it offered generosity. On time. Approaching. They stood together, not hurried, gathering the small things that made up their separate journeys. Ethan took the umbrella, closed it with a gentle shake, and the rain tapped their shoulders in greeting. It didn't feel unfriendly. On the platform's edge, the wind traveled in a narrow river, cool and clean. The lights down the tunnel grew brighter, a necklace drawing near. "Do you ever think," Mira said, voice just above the rain, "that we are more ourselves in moments like this? Between places, before decisions have to be made." "I do," he said. "I think we are a little more honest with strangers we don't expect to keep." "Maybe that's why I'm not afraid to tell you this," she said. "That lately I've been afraid of belonging nowhere. That I try to be many shapes and sometimes forget the one that fits." He let the words rest in his hands, the way you would hold a bird without closing your fingers. "I think," he said carefully, "you belong in any shape that lets you breathe, and in rooms with clocks that sing, and, if you'll allow my opinion, on benches where kindness fits under an umbrella." She laughed softly. "I'll allow it." The train slid into the station, glassy and lit, its doors like held breaths. People moved with the easy choreography of travel. The rain spread itself thin, as if making way. They stepped aboard and found 2 seats by a window. The glass was speckled with water. Each droplet wore the station's lights like jewelry. The car was warm. The air carried the faint scent of wool and something sweet from someone's bag. They didn't talk for a while. It didn't feel like silence to be fixed. It felt like quiet to be kept. The train started, a gentle sway, a body remembering how to move. The platform slid backward, the wet night becoming streaks of reflection, a watercolor pulled by motion. Mira leaned her head lightly against the window, watched the blur of trees and warehouse roofs, watched the way rain changed color under different lights. Ethan rested his hands on his knees and let his gaze soften. "Tell me," she said at last, "about your sister, the one who's moving." He smiled. "Her name is June. She collects coffee mugs with cities on them. She buys them at airport gates and train kiosks, and if she loses one, she keeps the napkin from the cafe and writes the city name in blue pen and tapes it to the inside of the cupboard. She says it counts." "It counts," Mira said. "I'm sure of it." "She's brave," he said. "Sometimes in ways that don't look like bravery from the outside. She stays when staying is harder than leaving. She shows up with soup when she wants to stay in bed. She asks for help even when her pride would rather not." Mira turned to him. "That sounds like love," she said. "I think it is," he replied. Outside, the night unspooled in long, dark ribbons, fields sleeping under the rain, ponds holding small circles where drops arrived and arrived again. The train warmed the air around them with a steady, soothing hum. Mira spoke again, voice softer than before, as if the movement itself had lowered it. "I used to think love had to be large," she said. "Fireworks and declarations, music swelling and doors flung open. But my grandmother, she taught me to listen for small bells instead. For the sound of a kettle boiling, for a scarf being wrapped around someone else's shoulders, for an umbrella being offered." Ethan didn't answer right away. He watched the window, watched their reflections layered over the night. "I think," he said slowly, "that I am only now learning how to hear those bells. They're quiet on purpose," Mira said, "so we have to lean in." They did not hold hands. It wasn't that kind of moment. Instead, their shoulders found a similar angle, a parallel that felt like understanding. "Will your grandmother be awake when you arrive?" Ethan asked. "She will," Mira said, smiling. "She says the night belongs to people who like listening." "What does she listen to?" he asked. Everything, the house creaking, the way the sugar falls against the sides of the jar, the clock she named Henry complaining that he is doing far more than his share. He chuckled. I'd like to meet Henry, he said. You'd get along, she said. He appreciates sarcasm. They both laughed quietly, laughter that didn't wake anyone. The train made a brief stop at a small town whose name glowed on the platform like a secret. A couple boarded and sat far down the car. The doors side closed. Do you think we'll remember this? Mira asked, eyes on the glistening letters outside. I think we already are, Ethan said, even the quiet parts. I'll put it in my drawer, she said, with the bus tickets and the lint. Save a corner for the peppermint, he said, raising his empty cup. And the chamomile, she replied, raising hers. The car swayed, a cradle for grown people who had forgotten how to be rocked to sleep. The rain agreed to be softer, the night agreed to be kinder, and the tracks kept their steady promise. Mira's voice drifted, gentle as a wool sleeve. When I was a child, she said, I thought trains went in circles, that if you rode long enough, you'd come back to the same moment. I thought time did that too. Maybe it does, Ethan said. Maybe it loops around kindness until we notice. She nodded, eyes half-lidded now, lashes making little shadows. If I fall asleep, she said, will you wake me before river song? I will, he said, just before, so you can hear the station name like a bell. Thank you, she murmured, and eased further into the window, her breath becoming the slow tide of someone finding rest. Ethan looked out at the night. He wasn't sure when the hurry had left him, only that it had slipped off somewhere between the vending machine and the heater's hum. He felt as if the evening were a pocket he'd found inside his coat, unexpected, exactly the right size for the small, precious thing he hadn't known he was carrying. He didn't want to name it. Naming sometimes made things skittish. He let it be. The train's rhythm changed subtly, a signal in the rails. A sign drifted by. River song, 2 miles. He touched the edge of her cup with a fingertip. Mira, he said softly. She stirred, lifted her head, eyes bright with the soft confusion of waking. Is it? Almost, he said. Would you like to hear the bell? She smiled, drowsy and true. Yes. The train slowed. The platform lights gathered like old friends. The name River Song came into view, lit and wet and a little proud. The doors sighed open. They stood. The air at the threshold was cooler, carrying the smell of river stones and wet wood. Mira turned to him, umbrella in hand. For a moment they hovered in that pearly space where words and not words share a border. Thank you, she said simply. For the tea, for the umbrella, for being a stranger I didn't have to hurry past. Thank you, he said, for clocks and bells and rain that sweetens time. She laughed softly. If life loops around kindness, she said, I hope we meet again on the curve. He nodded. And if not, may your grandmother's clocks keep singing. They will, she said. Good night, Ethan. He blinked. I don't remember telling you my name. You didn't, she said, eyes sparkled with mischief and rain. The attendant did when he checked your ticket. He said it very clearly. She leaned in, conspiratorial. And my name is Mira. He tasted it, then kept it like a small coin in a safe pocket. Good night, Mira. She stepped onto the platform. The umbrella blossomed above her, a small constellation under the station lights. She turned once, lifted a hand, and then was going down the steps into a night that belonged to people who liked listening. Ethan sat back down, felt the train gather itself. The seat next to him was still warm. He placed his empty cup on the window ledge, watched the rain wash the glass clean and new. Port Haven was not far. June would be waiting with a guilty smile and too many boxes and a pizza that leaned towards the side with extra olives. He imagined telling her about the station and the umbrella and the clocks named Henry and Isabel. He imagined she would say, "See?" The best conversations happen when the scenery is moving. He smiled to himself because he could hear her saying it. Outside, the wet world unfolded. Inside, the quiet held. If your eyes are heavy, you can let the story end here. May your night be a warm platform and a gentle train, carrying you exactly as far as you wish to go. From all of us at Whispered Nights, sleep peacefully.